Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Steve Gadd.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Thank you. I'll try to, like, there's, I like Latin stuff. And there's like a real simple sticking that I use for like a Mozambique thing and also like for Samba. I'll play it real slow and then I'll show you how I use it with the cowbell. Thank you. I was using the same sticking for both feels, like the feel with the cowbell and the one with the when I was playing the right hand on the snare drum. Does anyone want me to explain more about that? The question was, what's my approach musically towards soloing in Latin music? I have the same approach soloing in Latin that I would do, have playing in other types. I think in phrases, either 4 or 8 bar phrases, and that it helps me keep my place. I think just naturally I think that way, and if I can lock it into 4 or 8 bar phrases, it makes for a more meaningful solo, something I think that's more easily understood. Do I think the clave? The left hand sort of plays like a Cuban clave. It's if you listen to the left hand by itself. Cuban clave is so I think the first, I don't think the Cuban clave like per se, but I think the first part of it at the beginning of every bar. But I'll tell you, the nice thing about playing Latin music is that there's more than one guy playing drums, and it's nice to have that to solo. It's nice when someone does play like a clave or a cowbell behind a drum solo for me, because it gives me a chance to like stop and let some space go by, and the groove doesn't stop when I do. So technically I can't play it when I'm soloing like that, but I sort of think part of it because my left hand does it with that beat, and I would prefer to have someone do it when I was soloing because it's more fun. It's more fun to solo like that. The question was, could I tell you about my early training? I started taking lessons when I was about 7 or 8 years old. He was like pretty strict. I didn't like lessons too much. Then I used to like playing just sort of like with records was more fun for me. And after a while, I got into the preparatory department of the Eastman School of Music. And at the same time, I started playing in a drum corps, where I started getting into the rudiments. And I was sitting in, there were a lot of clubs in Rochester. Like there were organ groups that used to come into town, and I used to go sit in with those guys. And then there was a place called the Ridgecrest Inn. They had matinees on Sunday afternoons. They brought in people like Dizzy and Gene Krupa, Art Blakey, Max Roach. And they'd let Chuck Mangioni's from my hometown. He and I would, his family and my family, his kids would go there, and these people would let us sit and play. It was great. And that was, you know, I consider that part of the training. I went to, I continued to study through high school. You know, did all-state band, played with the jazz band in high school. Continued to play in drum corps. Continued to go to those clubs and sit in. And then I went to college. My first 2 years was at Manhattan School of Music. And after that I transferred to Eastman School, which is in my hometown, Rochester, New York. Went there for 3 years. Graduated and went in the Army for 3 years. Played in the Army band, Fort Meade. And then I got out of the Army and moved to New York. That's it. Yeah, my friend was saying that I was, you know, like sort of patient to let the groove get established. And he wanted to know if it was something that I always worked on or if it developed later. Is that right? Was I patient from the beginning, or was it something that I worked on? And I wasn't patient from the beginning. It was something that I started working on after. Actually, I started working on it after I got to New York. Before that time, it was pretty much like every time I played was the last time I was ever going to play. You know, I wanted to get all my licks in, and I really started paying attention to the feels and playing more simply when I got into the studio, because I had a chance to hear some of the stuff that I played back, and it was amazing because like where my head was at before I got in the studios was like when the playing got real intense and real busy and real, you know, like exciting on that level in a live situation. When I got in the studio and heard it, you know, heard the what, you know, where the tune was going to peak in the studio, and if it got like that and you heard it back, it just was almost incomprehensible. You know, I would start playing, you know, too busy, and it would cover up whosever album I was playing on. And I started learning that it was, you know, more musical to start getting simple. And it started to become a challenge to me to try and make it sound full, starting from the other level, starting from a real simple place, than to think that the height of the music was always the most technical and the most busy and the loudest. And hearing it back made it a lot more understandable. So I didn't start out like that. It was something that I developed. And I didn't start really developing it either until after I got out of college. In soloing, do I think of a resolution point in every couple of bars to know where I'm at? If I'm thinking in 4-bar phrases, then the resolution point would be at the end of the 4th bar. In other words, if I'm thinking of a 4-bar phrase, I could play anything in that 4-bar phrase as long as I know, you know, where I am on what bar I'm at, you know, and then I would sort of like end the phrase on the end of the 4th bar and then begin another phrase on the downbeat of the beginning of the next 4-bar phrase. And the more I do that, the more comfortable I get playing in phrases, then, you know, like, and I would start out simply in 4-bar phrases, not anything real complicated. And then, you know, like everything that we do, we got to start out easy, take our time with it, you know, and like relax with it. And then, you know, as you know, after a while, like 4-bar phrases start feeling a little bit more comfortable. then we can start taking, some chances within the 4-bar phrase, maybe doing some over-the-bar line things, but I still have to know where I am in that 4-bar phrase. Or if I don't, if I get lost, if I make one, or if I make the 4th beat of the 2nd bar 1, I've lost the phrasing. I've turned it around. I guess a way to practice that would be to, like set up, if you have a drum machine, program something like maybe like a 2-bar feel, something that where, like that you can play along with that helps you keep your place. But whether you have a drum machine or not, if you think that way, sooner or later it comes together. I wouldn't start taking chances in the middle. I mean, I would start it real simple until you get the feel like a 4-bar phrase. It's like a real natural thing. And like a lot of music, a lot of songs are written like that. Like the melody is like it's like 8 bars, and you can tell like halfway through a melody when you're halfway through. It just, to me, it just starts making sense if I start listening in phrases instead of just 1 bar at a time. Does it make any sense? How do you get it to feel intense at playing at low volumes? I don't know. It's, what happens, like, you have to really start out soft. When you're playing in front of a group of people, you have to really force yourself to play soft. It's not easy to play soft and feel like it's being communicated, It's not an easy thing. It's just, I think the way it happens is to just do it. And if it feels unnatural the first time, do it again. Just keep on doing it. The more we do those things that are uncomfortable, like after a while, maybe they'll start feeling comfortable. And I still feel uncomfortable doing that sometimes. Especially if you're playing in a hall, where you're dealing with like a sound system and monitors and other loud instruments. It's, like you're not really sure if it's getting out there. And like in a solo situation, when everyone stops and you got it by yourself, it's like all of a sudden, if you're playing soft, it's like it's hard to even hear it yourself. We just got to do it. Because to start out at full blast, there's nowhere to go, right? So it's just something we got to do. And I think eventually, like if we're playing a lot, then it'll get more comfortable. But like, so when I'm on a tour and if I do it every night or try to do it every night, after a while I just overcome the elements and I get used to it. If I'm off for 6 months and I go back and do it again, it's uncomfortable all over again. Every time you got to go through that. It's one of those things. The question was, how did I get the sound? Did I ever have any other sounds? And how do I play laid back? Right? What influenced it? My age influences how laid back I play. It was it wasn't something I always did. I didn't always lay back. I was used to play real on top. I heard Rick Marotta play. Rick's a friend of mine. And he plays like he came from another place. He came from just a real backbeat kind of place and a real groove oriented, and I had come from more of a technical place. And so when I heard that, I got inspired by another kind of a feel. I mean, it was real simple, but it felt so good, and it was something that I couldn't do. It was something that I really had to think about. And when I started thinking about it, I became aware of how on top I was a lot of the time when I was feeling just like I was playing normal. So that, and then I started hearing other guys play on albums, guys that I have a lot of respect for, like Jeff out here. People with great feels. It was just something that I never really spent any time thinking about. And when I became aware that I hadn't, I got challenged to do that because it was something that I couldn't do, and I had to work on it. And I think you always have to work and think about playing the time. I think that being relaxed is where the music feels the best. I know that being relaxed is where I can play the most. If I have to, and that goes for like at loud volumes too. If I have to play at a real loud volume, half the things I can do technically go right out the window. And the things that I do play don't feel as in the pocket as when I'm playing, at a more relaxed level. But it's something I think about. It was something I thought about tonight before I started playing. I mean, I was nervous. I get scared before I come out here, believe me. And it's almost like it's not easy to force yourself to relax, but it's something that I try to do. And then and once I get into it, then things start to flow, and I start feeling better. But it's a never-ending thing that I have to keep on dealing with. As far as the sound goes, when I got out of the Army and I went to New York, I wanted to get like a set of drums together. This was before I had any endorsement, and I bought a set of Gretsch drums with a 20-inch Gretsch bass drum and 4 Gretsch toms, like 12, 13-inch on the bass drum, and 14 and 16 on the floor. And I was starting to do like some recording, and all the studio players were using one head. The engineers, that was the sound they were going for. And I got the bass drum to sound pretty good, but I couldn't get the toms to do anything. They just didn't feel right to me. And so I took those back, and I bought a set of Pearl chromatic toms, 8 chromatic Pearl toms with only top heads. And they didn't sound that good either, but they sounded a little better than the other drums. And I went and I had bottom heads put on all of them. And it was just, like getting the sound was just like a trial and error thing. I mean, I was going nuts. I had and then I was going back and forth to Frank Ippolito's percussion shop, having them change tom mounts on the bass drum, putting Roger tom mounts on the Gretsch bass drum, and it was nuts. But I finally got it together. I found some heads that worked. I chose the drums that I felt were all-purpose, where I chose a 10-inch with 2 heads, a 12-inch with 2 heads, and at the time I was using a 13 and a 14 on the floor. And I could get out of them everything that I needed. And it was all just by trial and error. trying different combination of heads, trying different heads on the bottom, different thicknesses on top, different combinations. I mean, it was, and finally it came together. And I was into it, you know what I mean? It wasn't like something I felt like I had. I mean, this was something, I was into it. I was crazy. I was obsessed with it, And, in doing that, then I started learning. I mean, in doing that, I started learning how important, how much more you could, how many more different pitches you could get on a tom-tom with two heads rather than just one head. I learned that by just tightening the tension of the bottom head, you could change the pitch of the drum without even, without even touching the top head. I didn't know that before. So it was just trial and error. That's how it happened. Yeah, the question is, can I demonstrate some things between snare, bass, and hi-hat? And yes. If that was any of it, then I can do some of that slow if you want me to. It's all, you know what, all that stuff is just different combinations of sticking, you know what I mean? It's, do you want me to do any of that slow? if I'm going to solo after someone took a melodic solo, and I liked what I heard, would I use some of that around the kit? You know what I would do? I would use, like, if the way he ended his solo, if I liked that. I mean, I wouldn't be able to remember the whole thing that he did, but I might remember if he did a repetitive rhythmic thing at the end of his solo that was burning, you know what I mean? Like, I might start out my solo with the same kind of rhythmic thing. But I couldn't do it any more than that. I don't think I'd be able to remember what he played, you know what I mean? But I do use, you know, I try, you know, like we try to use anything that's at our disposal to make it musical. Like if it's something, if it's the way he ended his solo, rhythmically that you want to start yours out with. If it's like, if someone just played a solo and the groove was real strong, you know, the feel, just not necessarily all the notes that they were playing, but just the feeling that they had, the intensity. I would want to keep on feeling that while I was soloing. You know, I wouldn't want to lose that. You know, that would be, I mean, that would, to me, that would be part of the whole thing. And I'd like to be able to let my part connect where that let off and where it's going to end. Yeah, it would be something I would do, but only I would only remember like how he ended it. I wouldn't know what he did before that. The question is how much preparation went into the Leprechaun album, how much reading, and just how did it go down? It was all reading. Chick wrote out a piano score, his piano part. And on that, it had all of the figures that the horn players played, and a lot of the bass things. The only rehearsal was in the studio before we recorded it. We rehearsed it and recorded it, and we did it live. The horns played, at this, you know, when the rhythm section did. And I like that album. I'm proud of that. It really came off well. The engineer I think the engineer did a great job with the sound of the drums, you know, and I'm real happy with that one. Is on tuning, can I talk about the tension of the top head or the bottom head, and if I go for intervals? I think every drum has a certain overtone range where it starts to speak the most. If it's too loose, you don't get it, and if it's too tight, it gets choked up. So when I tune, I keep, you know, that feeling in mind. You can hear it when you tune the drum, where it starts to really open up and respond. That's the interval of a third. I keep it at these two at either a third or a fourth. You know, I don't think intervals as much as I just do to try and get them to sound like, not notes. I just want them to sound different from each other, and I want all the drums to be responding like where they're responding the most. If I just tighten these up past the point, you'll hear where they start to lose it and choke up. All right, I'll do that. And The other thing that's good is to tighten the head and tune down. It works better. No, it's not the same. I try to get the head or the drum to resonate the most that it can, and then I start changing the pitch accordingly. If the drum is resonating, to the point where it's really like sounding good, and I want and the top head tension feels good, but I want to change the pitch, then I'll monkey with the bottom head. And it's just it's that way with every drum. When the snares start to rattle, you can tell you're getting in the ballpark, you know what I mean? That drum was speaking better at that other pitch, but it was affecting the sound of the snare drum. So I'd rather not have it do that. I'd rather change the pitch. And and then once you get it at that point where it's responding the most, then you change it according to how you want it to feel tension-wise, how it's affecting, how the pitch is affecting the snare drum. And it goes like that all the way around. It's like we're talking about bass drum, and how I use the pedal to get the beater to come off the head after I hit it, right, instead of like coming down and keeping the beater next to the head. And I do that by keeping my toe not all the way up to the front of the pedal. Like the footboard is this long. This would be right underneath the beater here. So, and this would be like the floor plate here, right? And I would have my toe right about here. And it comes off automatically. So if I'm doing single hits and I keep it back that way, it just comes off. And it does I think getting the beater off the head gets a bigger sound. I can't play it fast though by keeping my foot back that far. So if I'm doing like like the double beats, like I slide my foot up more towards the beater and use this kind of technique on the foot. It's like a heel toe. And doing it that way, it gives me control. And I can play that and I can play it in a groove that way. I can feel the time and do it. I mean, I have control over it, and I'm not necessarily feeling every beat that I'm playing. I'm sort of just feeling, like the heel, like the, and then getting the other one on the upbeat. You can talk when you do it. It's amazing. It's more comfortable for me than trying to get speed like this. I don't have any control doing it that way, and And like I said, whatever we can do, whatever we can do technically, if we can do it relaxed, then I think we have more control over the music that way. When I play Latin, does my left foot generate the time? It can. I mean, it's nice. You can play play a pulse with the left foot to sort of let people know where the basic rhythm is, and it feels good like that. But also, it's nice, that it's nice to stop that and still feel it. You see, to me, we've only got so many things we can do up here. We got like this amount of drums. We don't have a lot of pitches, and so we got to use anything we can to make what we do to have variety in it and to still feel good. So if we got that thing happening over and over again, it gets real. You can really establish a groove that way. And then if you stop it for a few bars and still play the groove, but leave that out, still think about it. Don't forget the pulse. It makes it. It can be real musical. It can make like some of our solos like little compositions. And it's not just for the feel. I mean, it's something that it's like everything we do can affect how musical the solo is. I mean, if we play it like if we play it. I find that what I do, if I find something that's comfortable, I'll try and find, as many different ways as I can use that one thing to get different sounds. And I've been lucky thinking that way. And the stuff, it really isn't that hard. It really isn't. It's not always a question of how hard it's got to be technically. It's sort of like how, it's how we can use the technique that we do have in ways that are the most musical. Because we are musicians, man. Drummers are musicians, right? Here's what how did I get to play the samba the way I do? Was it am I doing something I heard someone else do, or did I take something I heard someone do and make it comfortable for me? And what I did is I heard Ayrto with Chick Corea's band play some samba stuff that just killed me. And the way he did the bass drum and the hi-hat was I do it like that sometimes, but that's not as comfortable for me as so my choice would be to do it the most comfortable way. but I like knowing how to do it the other way. And I would use this way to try and change something musically. You know what I'm saying? To just try, not maybe necessarily change the hands, but just change the feet, and it can change, and it can just take whatever I'm doing to another place, like something like this. Little subtle changes like that, you know, can make the difference between letter A and letter B, and you really don't have to change the whole thing that you're doing. You know, it's a good way to think. It's, you know, it's simple, and it's real effective, and I think it's musical, and that's important. You know, that's most important. Can I play some swing? Yeah. Thank you. You know, I was upstairs on the break, and I was talking with Joe Picaro. And he asked me to, if I could demonstrate, you know, like playing a song, and then soloing for the same amount of bars as the song, and then maybe playing the song out again. So I'll try to do that. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. da 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 da. Question is, could I explain about the technique and this grip with the this finger sticking out? You know, I think that's a mistake I make. I really do. I don't do that intentionally. I can't think of any reason for doing that. I really can't. If I was practicing snare drum, I would definitely make an effort to not do that. And I'm not, you know, I've been told that I do that, and I'm not. It's something I'm not aware of. It feels comfortable, so it's not anything that I really spend time working on. But if I do just, you know, practice snare drum technique, I try not to do that. It doesn't look good to me. I don't like the way it looks. That's really all I got about that. It's nothing I do intentionally. I don't think it's anything to really give a lot of thought to. And I think that comfort is real important when we play. We can watch the way someone else does it, and we can share ideas like that, but we have to not be afraid to do it the way that's the most comfortable for us. But like I said, it's not on purpose. So I don't think we should give it a lot of thought, you know. when and why did I start playing with the butt ends of the stick? It's got, I started probably when I went in the studio, when I was in a situation where I had to play louder. You know, in the studio you can really whack the things. They want you to get into the backbeat. Before that, a lot of the live playing I did was maybe in club situations, even like playing with a trio, in like when people were sitting having dinner. So like I would never do it then. So it just it got to be where like I got a more comfortable volume playing this way. And then when you play live, you can play out more. And I didn't want to go to a heavier stick. It just felt more comfortable playing like this. I turn them around every once in a while, but I for some reason I always end up going back like this. It gives me a more comfortable backbeat. I can hear the cymbal better. You know, when you're dealing with monitors and other people controlling the sound that you're hearing, sometimes it's hard for me to not only hear myself, but to even feel that I'm being heard. And just doing it this way makes me feel a little bit more comfortable. The question is, like, if I can't hear myself in the monitors on stage, like, what do I do? Do I get caught up in what I can't hear and trying to change it, or do I just, go on with it and try to make the best of it? It depends. If I can do something about it, I mean, if I know that I got a good sound man, and it's and it's something that he can fix, I'll try to talk to him about it. Maybe I'll tell him once or twice at the most. But if you get into a negative thing on the bandstand, and sometimes it just can't be helped. Like you start missing anything positive that's going on. So I would try one or two times to get it better. If there was an intermission, I'd talk to him about it. And then after that, I'd just try and go on and not get annoyed at it. If I can't hear myself, do I change what I would play? I would, what I would do is I would probably play harder than I would normally play. And that would mean that when I'm playing hard, I can't play technically what I could play soft, so I'd have to simplify what I was doing. So it would affect. It does it, like what you hear affects what you play. But at the same time, it's when you're dealing with monitors and sound and like the larger audiences, it's a whole other ball game. It really is a whole other ball game. And if you try to get in there and have it perfect, you can end up being real annoyed a lot of the time. So there's a certain amount of compromise that you have to make under those conditions. And then when you're playing in smaller clubs, one of the nice things about that is the intimacy and the sound you can hear better, and so if you can enjoy the good times, and when the times aren't as good, try and get through them. The easier it gets, and the less frustrating it gets. Because I remember at times when the sound wasn't right, that's all I could think about was how bad everything was, and it's not a fun way to get through it. There's better ways, more positive ways to get through it. We have to just train ourselves to do the best we can under different situations. The question is, when you're in the studio, how do you understand what someone's asking you to do on the instrument, what they're putting into words? How do you understand what they want you to play, and vice versa? Like if I'm producing, how would I get them to understand by me verbalizing what I want them to do musically? And that's not an easy one, Some people have a lot of time in the studio, and it's like trial and error. If they have a big budget, you can just keep on going over things, and they'll hear everything they don't want until they hear what they do want. Other times, the you know, someone will be, lots of times producers will ask for things that, you know, that what they're really asking you to do is to play the music. You know, so I mean, you can you know, go back to playing what you feel is right, and then he can give you suggestions from there. It's like a give and take thing. That's one of the things that's real tiring about being in the studio. It's like trying to understand what the producer wants from you, trying to understand what their idea is for the music, and not getting real insecure and like self-defeated when it doesn't happen the first time. I mean, those are some of the things we have to, you know, at least for me, that I have to work on, because if you don't get it the first time, I can start blaming myself for the thing not working, or thinking I'm, you know, like, well, maybe everyone's got their finger pointed at me, and like I'm the cause of it not happening, and I can cause a lot of problems for myself. We just got to keep on trying, you know. If we don't play it the first time because we don't understand what they want, we just keep on trying. The whole thing is to try and communicate and understand. And and I'll do it by maybe, like, if I want someone to play something, I'll try and sing it to them, or I'll suggest maybe don't play as busy, don't play chords there, play like a single line thing, play a line in harmony. I would try and make statements that were as close to exactly what I wanted as I could, and if I was vague about what I wanted, I'd try to hire people that had a lot of patience with me, you know, that were willing to go through this thing with me, because it's painstaking. That's some of the stuff that happens in the studio with people. That's part of it. Thank you.